The beginning of a new era. Will it work? What's up, everybody? Welcome aboard to Bubba's Bottom Line for Sunday, January the 19th. And of course, tomorrow, Inauguration Day. I would call it the beginning of a new era, although this is obviously Trump's second term. But this term, there is no election coming afterwards. There is no trying to get reelected. He's got one shot at it. And again, I think it'll work. I think that running this country like a business will work. I think, but of course, we still have to worry, excuse me, about the battles of the deep state, the battles of the cabal, the battles of all the cartels that are hidden underneath Washington, D.C. and our political system. You see all the assholes trying to meet with Trump, as in Bill Gates and as in Zuckerberg. And again, these are not your friends. These are people that are in a position that are trying to take over the world in general, or take over the United States. And of course, we know that Bill Gates is the largest single owner of farmland, which again, as we all know, he who controls the farmland or the food controls the world. But I think that we've got other issues at play, and of course, President Biden just gave his final speech or whatever, and his words were, "For God's sakes, pay your fair share." I'm so sick of hearing about taxes and who should be paying taxes. Everybody should be paying taxes, and everybody should be paying their share. Now, again, we've said this many times on this show, okay, that you want to fix the taxes, you want people to pay their fair share. Fix the tax code. It is not an issue of who pays. The wealthy pay their fair share of taxes. However, there are many loopholes within inside that 90,000 page tax code, which could certainly be fixed. Okay, so that's would be the bigger issue, is fixing the tax code, not wanting to start to penalize somebody who wants to make money. I don't get it. I think that everybody should have the desire to make as much money as they can. Okay, do you want to work for free? I certainly don't. I think that should be that make as much as you can, as often as you can, and then pay your fair share of taxes. And your fair share of taxes is by the code. Otherwise, all of the wealthy would be in jail for income tax evasion. So again, this is an old argument that is just basically stupid. Okay, and of course, with the inauguration tomorrow, will there be any trouble? I don't think so. I mean, authorities are planning for trouble, but I think the country is spoken by the amount of votes that Trump got. I mean, listen, he was a 4-1 underdog to win the popular vote, yet he won it easy. So now, as we look at markets, we'll call this the everything bubble. And again, I'm not saying it's going to pop anytime soon, but I think there are warning signs. I think I continue to contend that banks are dramatically over leveraged once again, and I want to know, when we think that this bubble is going to pop, and we have no idea. Again, listen, if you go back to the 90s, it just one day decided that it was over, but it really wasn't one day. I think you're seeing a lot of signs of weakness, and we'll talk about more of this in our market report. But the rally last week, I think, was more of a dead cat bounce and a short squeeze than anything else. But we'll get into that a little bit. But already, Trump has not even been inaugurated yet. But we now see a ceasefire working in Europe. I mean, in the Middle East, we now see peace. Starting to work out in Russia. We've seen a lot of changes, and I think that is the effect of Donald J. Trump, who is a little bit tougher and understands what we're trying to get done here. And as you know, that I love the idea of tariffs. I love the idea of taking control, and I think that you should remember that we could survive. We could be an island on our own, and would prices go higher? They might go higher, but so would wages. Everybody likes to look at one side of the coin, and the fact is that if we look at both sides of the coin, then if prices go higher here, so will wages go higher here. I mean, this has been one of the worst periods for inflation in the Biden administration. And your wages have not kept up with the cost and inflation. Your Social Security, if you're on Social Security, has not kept up with the cost of living. Okay, inflation is spiking. The hidden tax of inflation that we have watched. This has not been a good period, and the Federal Reserve has fucked you once again. Okay, you can say that you're a supporter of the Federal Reserve, but you would be wrong. The Federal Reserve is nothing more than a cartel. Okay, the Federal Reserve has given the banks, okay, an extra 240 basis points on their lending value, okay, and made them more profit. It hasn't helped the average person who borrows money. The Fed funds rate are where the banks borrow from the Fed and then they lend it out to you. Well, the Fed funds rate have dropped 100 basis points since September 18th, and the Fed, the lending rate has gone up to 4.7 as of this moment. Okay, so it's a 220 basis points move against you and me, the consumer. Okay. Another strong retail sales support. Well, how about we say that it's an inflation report, not a true retail sales? Prices have gone higher. Okay, there is no doubt. You cannot tell me that prices have not gone higher. So I think when we continue to look at the bigger picture, prices are rising. And how about this? The progressive congressional staffers are fighting for a 32-hour work week. Now, how do you feel if you're one of those persons who got to work 80 hours a week, 2 jobs to survive, yet these assholes want to a 32-hour work week? What happened to at least a true 40-hour work week? I mean, I never worked 40 hours in my week. I've always worked 50, 60, 70 hours a week my entire life. I don't get it, okay? With the bank earnings rolling in, I think that it's just showing you there's a bigger sign of trouble. Again, you know, when the Fed lifted the lending restrictions on banks in 2021 during COVID, they started getting well over leverage. And again, nobody knows when it will end. Okay, but we do know that this is not the first time that banks have got over leverage. This is not the first time banks have put us in jeopardy. And unfortunately, the bad deal for you and me, the consumer, is that we get the ability to bail out the banks when they do go bust. And that's a wonderful business model. Fuck everybody, steal their money, make as much as you can. You go out of business, the Federal Reserve will bail you out. It's a wonderful thing. And of course, the Democrats continue. You know, I love these hearings, okay, for Trump's cabinet and in general, okay. And this is not a Democrat or Republican issue, because obviously if the candidate is a Democrat, the Republicans are a bunch of jagoffs that, you know, make ridiculous questions, and of course vice versa. When it's a Republican candidate, the Democrats, you know, it's just stupid. I mean, this whole system of having these hearings the way they have them is they're partisan. They're not anything more than a witch hunt to try to affect, in this case, the incoming president. I think we need to do something, and I think we've seen some things done. Talks about term limits, votes on term limits. So let's hope. Listen, it's beneficial to everybody, whether you like Trump or you don't like Trump, to get things done to better this country. Okay. Again, it shouldn't be who you like or who you don't like. It should be, can we benefit the country? Okay. Can we benefit Americans? I think that's the biggest thing. And what is Trump going to do for Europe? Well, first of all, we're going to supply them oil. We're going to supply them liquefied natural gas, bring their prices down, because their prices in Europe are ridiculous. Okay. So, I mean, listen, I think a Trump presidency would be very good for Europe. I think it'll be a little tougher on NATO because, again, I think he's going to go back to the same bandwagon. And I agree. Okay. Pay your fair share or don't have the protection. Okay. I think that, again, we've been swindled by Dr. Fauci of the vaccines. Total bullshit. You can see certain companies in trouble now, Moderna. But I don't trust vaccines. I wish I wouldn't have got the first 2. And I think that it was a mistake. I'm not a believer in COVID. I think COVID is nothing more than the common cold. Okay. So again, I'm really against, and you know, if you watch TV lately, I mean, you can't. I watched TV last week and watching football. I think there was 13 different drugs advertised. We need to do something about Big Pharma. They've got too much control of the government and of the media system. And of course, we see the media switching over. And of course, again, we have a lot of bad reporting in this country. And finally, they have charged a Pennsylvania woman with registering dead and non-existent voters. Now, this is something that's got to stop as well. I mean, look, we all know that elections going back in history, there's always a little bit of funny business. But now, with AI and now with other things, you can do it so much faster and so with such a bigger quantity. I think you have to be very careful. So in the meantime, this is Bubba's Bottom Line. It is Sunday, January the 19th. And of course, tomorrow's Martin Luther King Day. So the markets are closed. But we're going to step out here for a break and come back with our market report. And we'll be right back with Bubba's Bottom Line. What's up, kids? We got our sponsors, as you know. And again, look, most of them are brokerage sponsors. And I'm not telling you that you should go to these brokers. I am telling you that I believe that you'll be happier if you take a look at them. I think you'll be happier and make more money if you look at them. But again, I have other brokers as well. But our partners are Capital Trading Group, TRADIER Brokerage, ITM Trading, which is for your gold and silver needs. That's who I always interview with Daniela Cambone, excuse me. And of course, we have two new sponsors, one being Spooky Express for your sports and entertainment pleasure, and it's spookyexpress.com. And we have a brand new sponsor. I'll have more information for you during the week, but it's 1,000 Stocks. It is actually one of the greatest stock platforms I've ever seen. But all the information is scrolling on the bottom of the sites. That includes our high school program, which we're trying to help give our young children some financial literacy. In the meantime, let's get back to Bubba's Bottom Line with me and our market report. Welcome back. This is Bubba's Bottom Line. It is Sunday, January the 19th. And again, remember, the markets are closed tomorrow. They are open electronically through Globex, but basically they're closed. And of course, last week, monster week to the upside. I personally believe dead cat bounce, short covering rally, but I'm not getting in the way of it. Remember, I always give you my positions every single day. Okay, and we've been long every day. Okay, we were long the entire week, and we are still long everything but the Nasdaq. Okay, the Dow, S&P, and the Russell. As we look at the dollar continues to be strong. And again, those idiots that say, well, a strong dollar is no good for commodities, I always go back to, if somebody once could explain to me why we want a weaker dollar to help our commodity space, I'd like to know why. You want to sell your commodities, just sell them at a cheaper price. If the dollar is strong, that's good for you because it gives you more buying power elsewhere. I think a strong dollar is good. That's my opinion. In the meantime, we don't trade it anymore because of the costs in trading through the New York exchanges. But we do trade the euro currency, which you've been long, and it looks really bad. But I think you're looking for a big bounce. I would think you'd see a pretty sharp bounce this week. Again, a short covering rally, which will get us out and make us a little profit. Bonds and notes, we're still long. They had a nice little week this week, but again, the 10-year notes are still higher, and we're still long both. I think that, again, we look at this interest rate market, total bullshit. Okay, the Fed does nothing for anybody. Interest rates are higher, mortgage rates are going through the roof. Now, again, they're really not high. If you're my age, interest rates at 4.5% to 5% to 6% are not high. But for those of you who were in your 20s in 2008, these are extremely high rates. But in general, they're really not. And the real problem we still have in this country is letting asset classes price themselves. In the meantime, Bitcoin made a new all-time high. I'm sorry, it didn't make a new high. It got close to a high, but it was up like 5,000 on Friday. I like Bitcoin, but I would expect it, and I would look to short it here. I think it's going to pull back to about 85,000. Again, nothing to do with my long-term view. I just think it's probably pretty overbought here. Gold had a good solid week, breaking out again to the upside. A little bit overbought here. I'd look for a little bit of a pullback, but we're still long gold. We're still flat silver. Platinum we have no trade in, but we would be long if we did. Copper is still just churning in that 430 area. We are flat. We don't have any position right now. The grain markets all had a nice little rally. I think wheat is still the weakest, and we are still short corn. you want to make a play, take a look at buying wheat. I think it's probably the best buy on the board right now. If you play those, cattle is on its ever push to $2. I would be a big seller at $2. We don't trade anymore, but I would be a seller at $2. Hogs continue to try to run a little bit higher. They had a pretty solid week as well, but they did come down the last 3 days, but are bouncing fairly well. Natural gas looked like it was going to explode, and then it hit the upper end and got popped. Again, remember, markets are very efficient at pricing things in. The polar vortex bullshit, yeah, you got a big spike up to about 440 in natural gas. Now we're back at 390. I think by the end of the next couple of weeks, we'll be back to 330, but we'll see what goes on. Crude oil spiked up and reached $80, and I think that's the highest level we've seen. First of all, I think with Trump in, drill baby drill, I think this will be back. And when Trump left office, oil was $35 a barrel, and I expect it to get back into those ranges. Again, the commodity markets look like they're starting to move up, and as soon as these equities start to sell off, I think that'll pump them up. But overall, again, I would be careful. Markets are still slow. I wouldn't get too aggressive. All I would be doing right now is looking for extensions, either overbought or oversold conditions, and trade against those because those are the highest probability. In the meantime, remember, the markets are closed tomorrow. This is Bubba's Bottom Line, and we're going to step out here for our final break and be back with our commentary. What up, kids? Again, I'm not going to go through the whole speech. Capital Trading Group, TRADIER Brokerage, ITM Trading, Spooky Express, and 1,000 stocks. Okay? Great partners. Some of them are brokerage partners. I do have other brokers to give you full disclosure, but check them out. Their websites are scrolling on the bottom of the side in our high school program. In the meantime, let's get back to Bubba's Bottom Line with me, Todd Bubba Horwitz, and have my commentary and the last 2 football games that are left. Welcome back. It is Bubba's Bottom Line Sunday, January the 19th, and of course, you know, we've watched on the Hill this week all the bullshit of these hearings, and again, I have to ask you, you know, isn't there dirt on everybody, but yet they continue to try to dig? But I talk about it even more from a cost standpoint. Our regulators, our legislators are worried about who Trump is putting in as his cabinet. And again, I understand there needs to be some stuff. I mean, obviously you don't want crazy people and nuts. Well, of course, we just had a crazy president. So again, I get part of it, but I think we make far too big of a deal, and I think we spend far too much money on this whole thing, and it's far too public in the media, and this is the problem I got. And of course, one of the biggest problems for Trump was going to be Pete Hegseth, and it looks like there's not going to be a problem. It looks like he's going to get in. Pamela Bondi's going to get in, and I think that that's the way it should be. I think that when you're running a business, and again, make no mistake, yes, there is governing, but the United States itself is a business, and you better have the best people there to run that business. That is my opinion. That is how I see it, and I'm sick and tired of it, and I'm hoping that Elon Musk and Ramaswamy can take care of the debt. I'm hoping that we can get term limits in general, because those are things that are on the docket right now. So let's hope that President Trump does a great job, because whether you like him or you don't like him, it can only help you if he does a good job. And this is Bubba's Bottom Line, and of course there are 2 games left for today, and that would be the Rams and the Eagles. We like the Eagles, and Buffalo and Baltimore, and we like Buffalo. Have a great week, everybody. Have a great day. We'll see you back Tuesday with Bubba's Day Update, because tomorrow is a holiday. And until then, have a great one, everybody. Thank you so much. Bubba's Bottom Line.